He was just a black kid delivering pizza, the kind of person no one took seriously. But in just 15 minutes, he didn't just fix a broken system, he exposed a billionaire's racism in front of the entire company and lit the fuse for a revolution no one saw coming. The son of a black cleaning lady had solved $100 million problem in seconds. But when he saw the CEO's reaction, he realized he may have just made the biggest mistake of his life. Nicholas Williams, 19 years old, never imagined that delivering a pizza to the 20th floor of Technova Solutions would turn into the most humiliating moment of his life. As he waited for payment at the front desk, his eyes locked onto a massive screen where a swarm of engineers frantically argued over a broken algorithm, one that was costing the company millions in losses every single day. Oh man, they're using the completely wrong data structure, he muttered, staring at the lines of code projected on the wall. The blonde receptionist in heels gave him a bored glance. Really, Pizza Boy thinks he's a coding expert now. That's cute. Nicholas ignored the sarcasm, his eyes never left the screen. To him, the flaw was obvious, like breathing. All it needed was reorganizing the binary tree and applying distributed hashing. The whole system could be stabilized in seconds. Excuse me, he spoke up, addressing a group of executives walking across the lobby. That algorithm you're using, it's running linear search when it should be using hash indexing. That's why your system keeps crashing. The air froze. 12 men in tailored suits turned to stare at the black delivery kid like he'd just spoken in alien tongues. Richard Blackstone, CEO of the company, a silver-haired man in his 50s with a perfectly tailored suit and a perfectly condescending smirk, let out a low chuckle. Kid, do you have any idea how many PhDs in computer science have been working on this for the past 6 months? Nicholas felt his face burn, but his voice stayed steady. I know the company's already lost $97 million from the system crashing whenever traffic exceeds 200,000 concurrent queries. Blackstone's laughter died in his throat. That number had never been made public. How do you know that Dr. Harrison, the VP of Technology, stepped closer, suspicion in his eyes? Nicholas took a deep breath. His mother, Monica Williams, had worked as a janitor in this building for 15 years. On late nights when she cleaned offices, Nicholas used to study in the empty conference rooms, picking up bits of technical conversation, abandoned printouts, forgotten notebooks. But saying that out loud would only embarrass his mother more. Just observation, he said simply. Blackstone folded his arms across his chest, the corners of his mouth curling into a cruel smile. Well then, little genius, Blackstone smirked. If you're so smart, prove it. Fix the problem. The challenge echoed through the lobby like a verdict. All eyes turned to Nicholas, some with smirks, others waiting for him to fall flat on his face. None of them knew this pizza delivery kid had been accepted into Stanford at 16, but turned down a full scholarship to stay home and take care of his diabetic mother. Nicholas looked up at the screen, then scanned the faces around him. There was something in his eyes, not fear, but a quiet resolve that made a few in the crowd begin to realize they might have seriously misjudged the person standing before them. All right then, he said, pulling a beat-up phone from his pocket. But when I'm done fixing this, I want every one of you to remember you judge the cover without ever reading the story inside. If stories about prejudice and defying the odds speak to you, don't forget to follow the channel because this moment of humiliation is about to spark a revolution no one will forget. Dr. Harrison let out a loud laugh, sharp as breaking glass. This is better than comedy. Somebody call security, make sure they're recording when he faceplants. Nicholas glanced around at the crowd gathering around the screen. Employees from other floors were trickling down, whispering, pointing at the pizza guy bold enough to challenge a room full of senior engineers. 15 minutes, Blackstone declared, glancing at his gold Rolex. If you don't improve performance by at least 10%, I don't want to see your face here another second, and take your mother with you. Nicholas felt a chill surge through his veins. How did Blackstone know about his mom? Oh, that's right, the CEO sneered. Monica Williams, night shift janitor, 15 years strong, hard-working woman. But maybe it's time for early retirement, especially if she finds out she raised a liar. Humiliation hit Nicholas in the chest like acid. His mother had sacrificed everything, sleepless nights, her health, her dreams, so he could study. She'd worked 3 jobs after his father walked out scrubbing offices late into the night while Nicholas did homework in dim corners of the building. What's the matter, kid? Blackstone taunted, seeing his face tighten. Still want to play programmer? Nicholas inhaled deeply, remembering what his mother always told him, son, when they try to humiliate you. It's because they fear what you're capable of. Start the timer, Nicholas said, stepping up to the control desk. The blonde receptionist, her name tag read. Sarah raised her phone to record. This is totally going viral, she whispered to a coworker. Tech influencer does live challenge. Nicholas tuned everything out. He locked in on the screen. The system was more of a mess than he thought, layer after layer of tangled code like a house built with no foundation. But his eyes sharpened from countless nights at the public library and hundreds of hours watching free online tutorials quickly found the pattern. As his fingers danced across the keyboard, Nicholas remembered all the times he'd been dismissed at school where teachers treated him like a lost cause from a broken neighborhood. During his Stanford interview when someone asked if he really belonged, and when he turned down that scholarship called a fool for giving up his only chance to escape poverty. 10 minutes, Blackstone called out, clearly expecting a glorious crash and burn. Dr. Harrison stepped closer, peering over the code Nicholas was writing. The confident look on his face started to crack. Wait, this can't be right. Nicholas had just restructured the entire data architecture in under 8 minutes. What had once been 300 cluttered lines was now reduced to 47 clean, efficient, razor-sharp. What did you just do? A curly-haired engineer asked, his voice filled with awe. I approached the system the way I manage our household budget, Nicholas replied, eyes still on the screen. When you've got less, you learn to do more. I cut everything that didn't matter and kept only what was essential. Blackstone stepped in, his smug smile beginning to fade. No way. The brightest minds spent 6 months on that system. Maybe the problem isn't intelligence, Nicholas said calmly. Maybe it's perspective. If you've never had to survive a whole week on a single dollar, how could you possibly understand what true efficiency looks like? The room tightened like a pulled string. People exchanged glances. They were starting to realize something extraordinary was happening. 5 minutes, Blackstone muttered, but his voice had lost its edge. Nicholas typed the final line, stepped back from the console, and said quietly, "It's done. Run the test." Dr. Harrison hesitated for a moment, then ran the simulation. The screen flickered. Data poured down like a waterfall, then fell completely silent. The system had just processed 200,000 simultaneous queries in under 3 seconds. No crash, no errors, no way. Someone in the crowd whispered. Nicholas turned and looked directly at Blackstone. System performance improved by 97%, query time down by 90%, monthly server operating costs will be cut in half. The entire lobby was swallowed in dead silence. Sarah had stopped recording, her mouth hanging open. Even the blonde receptionist who had mocked him earlier looked like she'd swallowed her tongue. Blackstone clenched his fists, his face red with a mix of rage and humiliation. This is just dumb luck. A trick. You stole that code from somewhere, didn't you? I can rewrite the whole thing from scratch if you want, Nicholas said calmly. Or walk your engineers through every single line. Hell, I can even run a few optimization classes for your team. And right then, Blackstone made the biggest mistake of his life. He completely lost control, shouting for the entire company to hear, "I'm not letting some black pizza delivery boy humiliate me like this. Security, get this punk out of here now." The air froze. Dozens of phones had already recorded every word. The racism Blackstone had buried for years had just exploded in front of everyone. Nicholas didn't move. A faint smile appeared on his lips. He'd gotten exactly what he came for, not just fixing the system, but exposing the truth behind the man running the company. Interesting, Nicholas said, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. Because under state labor law, racial discrimination in the workplace is a federal crime. And with about 20 people recording that little outburst, every word you said just made the hole you're digging deeper. As Nicholas walked out of the building, Blackstone's scream still echoed across Technova's glass walls. 20 minutes later, Nicholas returned to the tiny apartment he and his mother had lived in for all 19 years of his life. Monica Williams was in the kitchen preparing dinner. The moment she saw his face, she knew something had happened. "Tell me everything," she said, turning off the stove and sitting down at the old scratched-up dinner table. Nicholas told her everything from the moment he spotted the error on the screen to the instant Blackstone's racist tirade was caught on dozens of phones. Monica sat quietly listening. Her eyes glistened, part pride, part fear. "Son," she finally said, "do you realize what you just did? Maybe I just made the biggest mistake of my life." Nicholas sighed. "I dragged you into this. I dragged myself into this. And now?" No, Monica cut in firmly. "You just showed the world exactly who you are. And if that man thinks he can destroy this family after I spent 15 years cleaning up his messes, then he clearly doesn't know the Williams family." She walked to the closet and pulled out an old, dusty shoebox. Inside were letters, documents, and photographs. "Son, there are things about Technova you don't know, things I've seen during all those night shifts." Nicholas opened the box. His eyes widened as he saw the evidence: fraudulent contracts, printed emails about illegal terminations, photos of executives using drugs in the company restrooms. "You collected all of this. When you're invisible," Monica said with a sad smile, "people act like you're not there. For 15 years, I saw and heard way more than I ever should have." The next day, Nicholas got an unexpected call. "Hello, is this Nicholas Williams? My name is Award Chun. I'm an investigative reporter with TechWatch News. I saw the viral video yesterday of your confrontation with Richard Blackstone." Nicholas hesitated. "I'm not sure I want to give an interview." "It's not an interview," Award interrupted. "It's a collaboration offer. I've been investigating Technova's labor violations for 2 years. I have an inside source confirming a pattern of systemic discrimination, but I need solid evidence to break the story wide open." They met at a quiet cafe in the heart of the city. Award was a sharp-eyed, middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, a veteran investigative journalist known for exposing corporate scandals. "Nicholas, your video is just the tip of the iceberg," Award explained, handing him a thick folder. "Blackstone had a long history of firing employees of color under fabricated pretenses, paying women less for the same roles, and using shady accounting tricks to dodge taxes." Nicholas flipped through the documents and recognized a few names, former employees his mother had mentioned in passing. "What do you need from me?" Access, Award said simply. "Your mother's been at that company 15 years. You've got the tech skills. And now Blackstone made the mistake of mocking you in public. He'll try to bury the video scandal fast. But if we can get more proof, we can take him down completely." Nicholas said, his eyes lighting up. Meanwhile, back at the Technova offices, Blackstone had called an emergency meeting with his legal and PR teams. The video had surpassed 200,000 views in under 24 hours. "I want that kid and his mother out of my sight by the end of the week," he roared. "And I want someone to find a flaw in his so-called solution." "There has to be something wrong with it," Dr. Harrison, who had remained unusually quiet since the incident, finally spoke up. "Richard, maybe we should consider bringing him in. The kid's clearly talented. It could actually help repair the company's image." "Are you insane?" Blackstone screamed. "I don't reward some arrogant brat who humiliated me in front of the whole damn world. Either find a way to bury him, or I'll find someone who can do your job." What Blackstone didn't know was that Dr. Harrison had secretly recorded the entire meeting. Years of witnessing shady behavior from the CEO had worn down his loyalty, and watching a gifted young mind get torn down out of prejudice was the last straw. That night, Harrison dialed the number Award Chun had left with Nicholas. "I've got something you'll want to hear," he said simply. In the days that followed, Nicholas transformed. By day, he continued delivering pizzas as usual, keeping a low profile. But by night, he joined forces with Award, and now Dr. Harrison methodically gathering and organizing every major violation Technova had committed. What they uncovered was staggering software development contracts signed at outrageously inflated prices with shell companies. Minority employees consistently passed over for promotions. And a secret scheme where Blackstone was leaking product intel to competitors for personal profit. "We've got enough to destroy his career and bring the whole company down," Award said during a late-night meeting in Nicholas's tiny apartment. "No," Nicholas replied, and everyone turned to him in surprise. "We don't want to burn the company to the ground. There are still good people there, honest employees trying to feed their families. What we need is precision, like a scalpel." Monica smiled. She saw the maturity in her son's thinking, the steady wisdom she had worked so hard to cultivate over the years. The best revenge isn't dragging someone down to your level, she said. It's rising so high they have to look up just to see you. Nicholas nodded. A plan was starting to form in his mind. Blackstone thinks I'm just some dumb pizza kid. Let's use that arrogance against him. He turned to a ward. You said you have connections with a few board members at Technova, 3 of them, and they're growing more and more frustrated with Blackstone's leadership. Perfect, Nicholas said, a dangerous confidence flashing in his eyes. We're going to give them an option they never saw coming. Blackstone wants to humiliate me in public, great. Let's give him exactly that opportunity. As the team started mapping out each step of the operation, none of them noticed the silhouette quietly watching from the high-rise across the street. Blackstone had hired a private investigator to tail the Williams family, convinced he'd soon dig up something to ruin them. But what he didn't realize was that his own paranoia would be the final drop that tipped the scale, the last spark that would set his downfall in motion. Every desperate move he made now only thickened the file of damning evidence being quietly compiled against him. Nicholas looked at his mother, then turned to Ward and Harrison. You ready to flip the board? They all nodded, and right there in the humble kitchen where Monica had raised a genius, a plan was born, one that wouldn't just change their lives, but redefine what justice meant in the corporate world. The boy Blackstone once tried to humiliate was now becoming his worst nightmare. And the takedown that was coming would be as elegant as it was devastating. The Technova boardroom had never witnessed a meeting like this. Blackstone had summoned the entire board of directors, members of the local tech press, and representatives from major investors for what he proudly called a demonstration of leadership and corporate transparency. Ladies and gentlemen, Blackstone began, his voice booming as he straightened his glossy Italian tie. I've invited you here today to witness how we deal with disruptive employees and attempts to defame this company. At the door, Nicholas stepped in calmly, still dressed in his usual plain button-up shirt. Blackstone flashed a predator's smile like a shark scenting blood. Ah, our now famous pizza prodigy has arrived. I do hope the cameras are rolling, because today you'll all see a liar exposed in full daylight. Nicholas took his designated seat. He quickly noticed the cameras carefully placed around the room. Perfect, just as planned, Mr. Williams Blackstone said, circling the table like a stage actor. You claim to have improved our system by 97%. But our experts have determined that what you achieved was nothing more than luck, a cheap trick by an amateur. At the far end of the room, Dr. Harrison glanced at Nicholas. Their eyes met. Everything was unfolding exactly as intended. In fact, Blackstone continued, we've discovered that you and your mother are involved in a conspiracy to steal the company's intellectual property. We have evidence she took photos of confidential documents during her night shifts. A wave of murmurs rippled through the room. Investors whispered. The press leaned in, cameras zooming. Nicholas remained still, not a twitch, not a blink. But there was a cold edge in his gaze that unsettled more than a few people. That's a very serious accusation, Mr. Blackstone, Nicholas said evenly. I trust you have evidence. Oh, we have it, Blackstone snapped, his composure slipping. I hired a private investigator. He caught your mother in areas she wasn't authorized to be in. And you meeting with shady characters? Nicholas nodded slowly. Interesting. And this investigator, did he also follow you? Blackstone froze. What are you talking about? Nicholas reached into his bag, pulled out a tablet, and connected it to the room's projection system. Because while your PI was busy tailing me, Ward Chun from TechWatch News was investigating something far more compelling. The screen lit up with a high-resolution photo of Blackstone leaving a fancy restaurant with a suited man. In the bottom corner, a timestamp 3 weeks ago. This is Vladimir Petrov, Nicholas said clearly, his voice slicing through the silence like a scalpel. A representative of TechCorp Russia, one of Technova's direct competitors. The two of you were negotiating the sale of proprietary algorithms for $12 million. Blackstone's face went sheet white. That's fake, photoshopped, Nicholas tapped again. The room filled with audio, a voice unmistakably belonging to Blackstone. That machine learning algorithm is worth at least $20 million on the black market. I can deliver the full source code by the end of the month. That quote's out of context, Blackstone shouted, but the authority in his voice was gone. Then allow me to provide more context, Nicholas said, smiling for the first time. He began to cycle through a cascade of evidence-forged contracts, emails about racially motivated firings, photographs of executives using drugs in company restrooms. Every single document had been quietly collected by Monica the Invisible Woman over 15 years of working nights. "Oh my God," one of the investors whispered. "Richard, is this true?" Nicholas wasn't finished. He played the full, unedited footage of his encounter with Blackstone, including the racial slur that many of the leaked versions had conveniently cut. And now Nicholas said, his voice firm and unwavering, comes the part that really matters. The screen displayed performance metrics from the system after implementing Nicholas's algorithm. In just 2 weeks, the company had saved exactly $143 million in operational costs. System efficiency had increased by 120%. All of that, Nicholas said, locking eyes with Blackstone, was thanks to a black pizza delivery kid using knowledge learned while his mother, a proud woman who worked here for 15 years, quietly cleaned up the messes you left behind. The boardroom was silent. Blackstone trembled, sweat dripping down his forehead like he'd just woken up from a nightmare. You set me up," he shouted. "This is a trap, a damn setup." "No," Nicholas replied, switching off the projector. "You set yourself up. I just pressed record." At that exact moment, a Ward Chun walked in, flanked by 2 federal agents. Richard Blackstone, one of them, announced, "You are under arrest for industrial espionage, workplace discrimination, and tax fraud." As Blackstone was handcuffed, he thrashed and yelled like a madman. "This is a conspiracy. You can't do this to me. I built this company." Nicholas stood calmly adjusting his plain shirt. "Mr. Blackstone, the difference between you and me is simple. You used power to oppress. I used intelligence to protect." As Blackstone was led away, a board member approached Nicholas. "Mr. Williams," he said, voice low and serious, "we'd like to talk to you about a proposal. We're in need of a new CEO." Nicholas smiled, already picturing his mother probably preparing dinner in the tiny apartment they'd soon no longer need. "I'll think about it, but first I've got a pizza to deliver." The boardroom erupted in laughter, but they all knew they had just witnessed something extraordinary. The boy Blackstone once mocked had just become the architect of his downfall, and proved that true justice isn't about blind revenge, but about smart patience and the courage to speak the truth when it matters most. 6 months later, Nicholas Williams walked the halls of Technova, no longer a pizza delivery kid, but the youngest CEO in the company's history. At just 20 years old, he now led a team of over 200 employees and oversaw contracts worth billions annually. The irony. The very hallway where he'd once been humiliated now featured his portrait on the Wall of Honor, right below the new company slogan he'd personally authored: "Excellence doesn't come in a color, only in results." So how does it feel being named the youngest and most innovative CEO in Silicon Valley? A Forbes reporter asked during his cover story interview. Nicholas smiled, adjusting a tie he still wasn't used to, even after months of wearing it. "It's surreal. 6 months ago, I was just a black kid delivering pizza." Funny how the title changes once you save a company from collapse. Technova's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. Under Nicholas's leadership, the company didn't just recover the $97 million it had lost, it tripled its market value. His revolutionary algorithm had now been licensed to corporations across the globe. Monica Williams. Nicholas's mother had since retired, living comfortably on the generous pension plan Nicholas had proposed for every janitorial staff member at the company. She sat front row at the Executive of the Year award ceremony, her eyes filled with tears of pride. "I never doubted," she whispered to a friend beside her. "I always knew my boy would fly. I just didn't know. He'd fly so high even I wouldn't be able to reach him." And as for Richard Blackstone, he became a pariah in the corporate world. After serving a 4-month sentence for industrial espionage and racial discrimination, not a single tech company would touch him. Former colleagues avoided him like the plague. His golf club revoked his membership. His ex-wife filed for divorce and claimed half of what was left of his assets. Now he lives alone in a 1-bedroom apartment in the suburbs, working freelance as a consultant for small businesses, none of whom know his disgraced past. His downfall was brutal and heartbreakingly public. The video of his arrest still circulates online, often shared with captions like "karma" and "poetic justice." Dr. Harrison, now vice president of Technova, often remarked in meetings, "I've never seen a takedown that elegant." Nicholas turned humiliation into inspiration, and Blackstone turned privilege into a prison. At a corporate diversity summit, someone asked Nicholas, "How were you able to forgive the people who tried to destroy you?" Nicholas chuckled softly. "Forgive, I didn't forgive. I just redirected the energy they threw at me in a smarter way." Blackstone taught me that the best revenge isn't dragging your enemy down, it's rising so high they vanish beneath your feet. As for Sarah, the smug receptionist who once mocked him, she now works at a small accounting firm, having been fired for unprofessional behavior. Every time Nicholas's name pops up in the news, a sharp pang hits her chest, reminding her of the things she once said. The very boardroom where it all began has since been renovated and renamed the Nicholas Williams Innovation Hub, a space where any employee, regardless of background, can pitch ideas freely without fear of judgment. Etched in gold on the wall is a quote from Nicholas's first speech as CEO. "The genius ignored today is the revolution of tomorrow." Nicholas has kept his lifestyle humble. Every Friday night, he volunteers to deliver pizzas to homeless shelters across the city. "To remind myself where I came from," he says, "and to show other kids that it doesn't matter where you are today, what matters is where you're headed." Award Chun, the journalist who helped Nicholas expose Technova, released a book about the events. It quickly became a bestseller. Title From Pizza Boy to CEO, The Truth That Toppled a Lie-Filled Empire 2 years after being publicly humiliated, Nicholas received an invitation to speak at Stanford University, the school he once turned down to care for his mother. At the end of his keynote, a student raised their hand. "If you could go back and change anything, would you?" Nicholas paused, looking out at a hall full of young, hopeful faces. "I'd change just one thing," he said with a smile. "I wish I'd delivered that pizza 5 minutes earlier, just so I'd have had more time to watch Blackstone's face when he realized he judged the wrong person." The auditorium exploded in laughter and thunderous applause. Richard Blackstone tried to destroy a brilliant young black man, but in the end, he accidentally helped create the legend of Nicholas Williams, and he learned the hardest lesson of all: that true revenge isn't payback. It's rising so spectacularly that the people who once looked down on you spend the rest of their lives wondering, "How was I ever so blind?" Nicholas Williams walked into Technova as just a pizza delivery guy. But when he walked out, he was the future of innovation. Because sometimes the world needs a reminder: genius wears no uniform. And justice. It always finds its way, especially when you dare to rise above hate. If this story moved you, share it, and let the light of extraordinary, everyday people inspire someone else today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget, like the video if you believe justice can come from the smallest voices. Subscribe so you never miss more powerful and true stories like this one. Comment if you've ever stood up for someone you love even when no one else believed you.